multiplying scientific notation. Whenever you multiply scientific notation, the way how you're gonna be multiplying this is by multiplying the two numbers. In this case, should be 1.3. That is gonna be multiplying 4. Then after that, you're gonna be multiplying 10 to the fourth times 10 to the sixth. So you're gonna be multiplying the two powers. But before I start multiplying, one of the rules that I want to understand or to remember is this. Whenever you move the decimal point to the left, you count how many units you're gonna be moving the decimal point. That number of units will be positive. And if you move the decimal point to the right, that number of units is going to be negative. Okay. So for now, I'm going to remember this. So I'm going to just leave it here for you to remember. Now, let's start by multiplying. I'm going to be multiplying 1.3. So let me write it here. 1.3. And that will be times 4. Now, let's multiply 4 times 3. That would be 12. Carries over 1. 4 times 1 is 4. Plus 1. That will be 5. Now count how many units do we have. You see this decimal point? It's going to be only 1 unit. So that means that we're going to go back only 1 unit. You always go to the end and then count back how many decimal places we have. We have only one decimal place. Go all the way to the back in our answer. Count only 1 unit. And that's how we're going to get 5.2. Next step, I'll be multiplying the two powers. I'll be multiplying 10 to the fourth times 10 to the sixth power. Okay. Whenever you multiply two powers, if they have the same base, to get the answer, all what you have to do is add the exponents. So adding 6 plus 4, you get 10 to the 10 power. So the answer should be times 10 to the 10 power. And that's how we get the answer. Okay. Now, the next one. For the next one, I'm gonna use the calculator to multiply 4.36 times 4.8. So uh, let me go ahead and start multiplying. That will be 4.36 times 4.8. Okay. So what I get, I'm gonna get 20.92. I'm gonna just keep two numbers after the decimal point. Okay. So the answer for this is gonna be 20.92. 20.92. The next step, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna multiply the two powers. Okay. Whenever you multiply powers, they must have the same base. So I have 10 to the negative third power, and that should be times 10 to the negative 6th power. Because they have the same sign, you're gonna add it up and keep the sign. So then the answer should be 10 to the negative 9 power. Now, that's what I'm gonna write. I'm gonna write times 10 to the negative 9 power. Now, one thing that I want to remember is that in scientific notation, what you have to do is you need to have only one whole number in front of the decimal point. This is where the decimal point is, right? So that means I have to bring it back so that I can have only number 2 in front of the decimal point. To have this in scientific notation, that's what I have to do. Okay. Now, can you see that I have to move it to the right? And I'm moving it to the right only 1 unit. So that means the answer then will be 2.092 times 10. And remember how we moved to the decimal point only 1 unit to the right? Then it's going to be plus 1. Okay. Now, negative 9 plus 1, they have different sign. Subtract and keep the sign of the biggest number. The biggest number is negative, so the answer should be negative 8. So that's how we get the answer for this other one. And now this is in scientific notation. You only should have one whole number in front of the decimal point. Let's do the next one. For the next one, I'm gonna be multiplying. That is gonna be 3.17, and that should be times 7. And I'm gonna get 22.19. So I'm gonna get 22.19 when I multiply 3.17 times 7. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna be multiplying the two powers. That will be 10 to the third power times 10 to the second power. So to get the answer, because they have the same base, what you're gonna do is just add the exponents. 3 plus 2, you're gonna get 5. So the answer should be times 10 to the fifth power. Now, this number is not in scientific notation. We need to have only one whole number in front of the decimal point. So that means I have to move the decimal point back 1 unit. And remember, whenever you move it right, you count how many units you move in the decimal point, and that's what you're going to be adding to the exponent. So the answer that we should have should be 2.219 times 10, and now we're adding 1 because we moved the decimal point only 1 unit to the right. So it's going to be 5 plus 1, then it's going to be 6. And that is going to be the answer. Okay. And remember, now that you have only one whole number in front of the decimal point. And now let me do the last one. So for the last one, now I'm going to be multiplying the two numbers that I have inside the parentheses. That will be 4.3, and that will be times 4.39. Okay. So the answer that I get should be 1887. So the answer should be 18.87. Okay. And now I'll be multiplying the two powers. So it's going to be 10 to the negative 6 power times 10 to the negative 5th power. So they have the same base. And to get the answer, because whenever you multiply two powers, right, and they have the same base, to get the answer, all what you do is add the exponents. Because they have the same sign, you're gonna add it up and you're gonna keep the sign. So you're gonna get negative 11. So that's what I'm gonna write, times 10 to the negative 11 powers. Now to get the answer, I have to move this decimal point so that I should have only one whole number in front of it. Okay, so I have to move it only 1 unit. Okay, so if I move it 1 unit, I'm gonna get 1.887 times 10, and because you move the decimal only 1 unit to the right, okay, you count how many units you move in the decimal point, only 1 unit. So in this case, I'm gonna be adding 1 to the exponent. Okay, so now they have different sign. Subtract, keep the sign of the biggest number. The biggest number is gonna be negative. So then the answer should be 10 to the negative 10 power. Okay, and this is how we're gonna get the answer in this case. And hopefully you understand this by now. Okay, and thank you very much for watching. Have a nice day.